The dropship shuddered violently as crimson lightning split the sky over Kael'thar. Winds howled through jagged cliffs, carrying ash that scoured the hull like sandpaper. The planet below was a nightmare. Rivers of molten metal slashed through, blackened canyons spitting steam and fire into the turbulent air. Even from orbit, the world had been marked as uninhabitable, a death world designed by nature itself. Inside the cockpit, Lieutenant Mara Jensen gritted her teeth, her knuckles white on the controls. "Stabilizers at max," she muttered. The squad's other pilots nodded, their faces tense in the flickering red light. Every instinct screamed at them. Kael'thar didn't want visitors. The landing zone loomed like a cratered battlefield. Jagged rock formations jutted up like ancient spears, and distant geysers hissed in time with the thunder. Mara's co-pilot, Sergeant Dax Ree, swallowed hard. "Sensors are spiking. Something's out there." Before anyone could respond, the first strike came. A massive shadow streaked across the canyon floor. The squad's reconnaissance drone, deployed to scan the landing site, erupted into sparks and flame. Screams crackled over the comms as the team realized they were being hunted. "Move, now!" Mara shouted, gripping the ship's controls as the dropship slammed down onto uneven rock. The landing skids groaned under the strain, sparks flying, as molten metal splashed dangerously close. The hatch slammed open, and the squad spilled onto the charred ground, armored suits reflecting the red-tinged lightning. Every step was a gamble. The air shimmered with heat and strange chemical mists, and every shadow could conceal death. Sergeant Kyle Moreno, the squad's survival expert, swept his sensor pack across the terrain. "No life signs, except ours. And maybe theirs," he muttered. The words hung in the air like a warning. The team moved cautiously, weapons raised, senses straining. The landscape itself seemed alive, the ground shifting beneath their boots as though the planet was testing their weight, their movements, their very instinct to survive. Mara's heartbeat raced. She had trained for combat against alien armies, but this was different. Kael'thar didn't just kill, it hunted. Hours passed, and the humans pushed forward, dodging bursts of molten spray and navigating jagged cliffs. Then came the sound, a low, rolling rumble that vibrated through their bones. Shadows flickered at the edge of their vision, too fast, too precise to be natural. Something moved in perfect synchronization with the planet's rhythm, stalking them with predatory patience. Kyle whispered into his comm, "Whatever's out here, it knows we're here. It's learning us." Mara's gaze swept the horizon. The storm offered no refuge. Every canyon and crevice could hide a predator. She tightened her grip on her pulse rifle. "Then we'll show it why humans survive. We don't just adapt, we anticipate." Suddenly, a massive shape erupted from the molten river. The squad froze, hearts pounding. It was unlike any creature they had seen, a fusion of chitin, muscle, and strange metallic exoskeleton, moving with both brute force and terrifying intelligence. Its glowing eyes locked onto them, unblinking, and it lunged. Kale dove to the side, firing a burst of plasma, but the creature dodged with uncanny reflexes. The humans scattered, each relying on raw instinct to avoid death. Every movement was life or death. Hesitation was fatal. Mara leaped over a fissure as molten rock hissed beneath her, pulling the squad deeper into Kael'thar's merciless embrace. Breathing heavily, Mara rallied the squad atop a jagged ridge. Below, the river of molten metal hissed, and the shadow of the predator lingered, watching, calculating. The squad had survived, but only by reacting faster than instinct alone could explain. They had entered Kael'thar alive, but the planet had already made its first claim. It would teach them the rules of survival, and it would not be forgiving. As the storm raged above, Mara spoke into her comms, voice steady but tense. "Record everything, every movement, every attack. We're not just here to survive, we're here to learn. And whatever hunts this world, it's about to learn what humans are capable of." Kael'thar's shadows shifted. Lightning cracked across molten skies, and the squad advanced into the unknown. Instinct was their weapon and courage their shield. The planet would test them, and humans would answer. The crimson storm had eased slightly, but Kael'thar remained a living nightmare. Shadows danced unnaturally across jagged cliffs, twisted by heat and wind. Steam hissed from molten rivers, and strange bioluminescent flora pulsed in rhythmic patterns, like warning signals written in alien light. Every sense screamed danger, yet the humans pressed on. Lieutenant Mara Jensen led the squad through a narrow canyon, boots crunching over obsidian shards. Sergeant Cale Moreno scanned the walls, noting strange grooves etched into the rock, too regular to be natural. "Looks like we're not the first and or the last," he murmured. Suddenly the air rippled. A low hum vibrated through their armor, setting teeth on edge. Sensors went haywire, electromagnetic spikes, fluctuating gravimetrics, and faint psychic readings that shouldn't exist. The squad froze. Something intelligent, and unlike any alien they had encountered, was nearby. From the shadows it appeared. A Vrikath. Sleek, chitinous, and eerily humanoid, it moved with a predator's grace. Its limbs were elongated, ending in clawed extremities that reflected the bioluminescent light, but its eyes, or what passed for eyes, were faceted, glowing with cold calculation. Mara gripped her pulse rifle tighter. "Stay sharp. They're hunting, not negotiating." The creature didn't attack immediately. Instead, it observed, tilting its head as if assessing them. Then with terrifying precision it vanished, leaving no trace but the echo of its psychic presence. The squad instinctively spread out, covering more ground while maintaining line of sight. Every movement felt like walking on the edge of a knife. Suddenly, Sergeant Dax Ree let out a startled gasp. A pair of Vrikath leapt from above, landing silently on the canyon floor. Their movements were synchronized, almost preternatural, as if they shared a single mind. Plasma-like tendrils of energy flickered across their limbs, a warning of lethal intent. Kyle dove behind a jagged rock, firing a burst of plasma. The Vrikath dodged effortlessly, vanishing into shadows before his shots could connect. Another emerged from the opposite side, phasing through the air like liquid shadow. The humans realized the terrifying truth. These predators could anticipate patterns, almost predicting human actions before they occurred. "Form a circle. Move unpredictably," Mara barked, forcing the squad to abandon conventional tactics. The humans scattered, weaving through molten fissures and steam vents, using every instinct honed in survival training. Each step was calculated yet unpredictable, a dance of life and death. Cale Moreno's eyes widened as he observed the Vrikath falter for the first time. One human, Private Lena Cross, had improvised a trap from the glowing flora. She lured a predator into a field of bioluminescent spores that emitted disorienting energy waves. The creature staggered, claws flailing, and Cale realized instinct and improvisation could disrupt even the most advanced alien senses. The battle escalated. Lightning cracked overhead, illuminating jagged cliffs and casting long shadows that twisted reality. The humans fought with a combination of technology and raw instinct, dodging, baiting, and countering the Vrikath's psychic strikes. The predators adapted quickly, but every human improvisation forced hesitation, error, and vulnerability. Mara's voice cut through the comms, calm but commanding. "Watch the terrain. Cale, set a perimeter. Dax, flank. Lena, prepare for distraction. Maneuvers." The squad moved with fluid coordination, instinct guiding decisions where pre-programmed tactics would fail. Minutes felt like hours. Every flicker of shadow, every hiss from the molten rivers could mask a lethal strike. Then silence, heavy and thick, settled over the canyon. The humans regrouped, breathing hard, checking injuries. The Vrikath had withdrawn, leaving no trace except for scorched rock and faint psychic echoes. Kyle Moreno's jaw tightened. "They've learned from us. They're adapting faster than anything we've faced. But so are we." Mara scanned the horizon, eyes narrowing. "Kael'thar isn't just testing our bodies, it's testing our minds. Every instinct, every decision counts. The moment we hesitate, we die." The squad moved forward cautiously, aware that this was only the first encounter. The Vrikath were predators, but humans had something no alien could calculate: creativity, adaptability, and raw, unyielding instinct. As the crimson storm faded behind them, Kael'thar seemed to pulse with anticipation, almost alive in its intent. The squad had survived the first hunt, but the planet had many more lessons in store, and the humans were ready to learn. The air grew thicker as the humans pressed deeper into Kael'thar's jagged heart. Steam hissed from molten fissures, carrying the acrid stench of sulfur and burning metal. Shadows warped in the flickering glow of bioluminescent flora, shifting like living eyes that watched their every move. Each step felt like trespassing on a sentient planet, a world that refused to tolerate weakness. Lieutenant Mara Jensen led the squad along a narrow ridge above a river of molten metal. The heat was oppressive, searing their suits despite advanced cooling systems. Below, jagged spires rose from the lava like skeletal fingers glowing with molten veins. "Keep your distance from the edges," Mara warned. "One misstep, and the planet takes a life." Sergeant Cale Moreno, scanning the terrain, noticed something disturbing. The cliffs themselves seemed unstable, small tremors rippling through the rock as if responding to their weight. "This place isn't just alive, it's hunting us," he muttered. Suddenly, a low roar reverberated from the canyon floor. Massive insectoid predators, their exoskeletons gleaming like obsidian, swarmed from glowing pools of acidic liquid. Each moved with terrifying coordination, their 6 limbs propelling them over molten rock with unnatural agility. The humans froze for a heartbeat, assessing the threat. "Scatter! Use the terrain!" Mara shouted. The squad leaped into action, dodging the swarming predators while keeping line of sight on one another. The creatures lunged with lightning speed, acid droplets sizzling the rock where they struck. One brushed Sergeant Dax Ree's armor, leaving a smoking scar. Private Lena cross-spotted a formation of pulsating flora along the cliffside. Her instincts kicked in. She grabbed a fragment, shaping it into a crude trap. "Over here!" she yelled, drawing the predator's attention. With precise timing, she triggered the bioluminescent spores, releasing waves of disorienting energy. One predator screeched and staggered, crashing into a molten fissure below. Kyle's eyes widened. That just worked. He realized the truth of Kael'thar. Survival depended on improvisation and instinct, not brute force. Every creature, every hazard could be turned against itself, but only if humans acted unpredictably. The squad pressed on, navigating geysers of superheated steam and rivers of molten metal. Acid rain began to fall, sizzling against armor and forcing the humans to cover their heads while maintaining footing on narrow ledges. Mara's pulse raced as the terrain shifted beneath them, a reminder that the Deathworld itself was an enemy. Suddenly, a massive fissure opened beneath Sergeant Moreno, sending him sliding perilously close to molten rock. Without hesitation, Mara lunged, grabbing his arm with a grip that defied exhaustion. "Instinct," she muttered, pulling him to safety. Their eyes met, silently acknowledging a truth Kael'thar demanded: hesitation equals death. As they regrouped, a new threat emerged. A psychic ripple in the air, faint but unmistakable. The Vrikath were near, observing the humans as they navigated the natural gauntlet. The predators didn't need to strike immediately. Kael'thar's environment was doing most of the work. Mara signaled the squad to slow, moving like shadows themselves. Every footfall, every glance, every decision was instinctive yet calculated. Lena used the alien flora to create diversions. Kale set traps with fragments of rock and molten debris, and Dax covered flanks, predicting predator movement with gut instinct rather than scanners. Hours blurred into a tense dance of survival. The humans were tested repeatedly. Geysers erupted unexpectedly, lava bridges collapsed, and predators attacked with unerring precision. But for every challenge, humans responded with creativity and instinct. Kyle realized that the Deathworld didn't just kill, it taught. Every hazard honed the squad's senses, sharpening reflexes and forcing them to evolve faster than any predator could anticipate. By nightfall, the squad reached a precarious plateau, overlooking the molten rivers. Below, their armor was scorched, bodies battered, and lungs burning from the toxic mists. Yet they were alive. Mara surveyed the horizon, eyes narrowing. Kael'thar won't get easier. Every trial we survive, we adapt. That's our edge. Beneath, the crimson skies, shadows shifted unnaturally, hinting at predators waiting, calculating, learning. The humans had survived the first true trial of Kael'thar, not by technology or firepower, but by instinct, ingenuity, and the courage to improvise where hesitation meant death. Night fell on Kael'thar like a suffocating curtain, but the planet did not rest. Shadows twisted across jagged cliffs, distorted by the flickering glow of molten rivers. Bioluminescent flora pulsed with eerie regularity, casting ghostly patterns that danced across the squad's armored forms. Every flicker of light hinted at movement, something waiting, calculating, hunting. Lieutenant Mara Jensen crouched behind a jagged outcrop, scanning the canyon floor with a pulse rifle at the ready. "They're learning from us," she muttered. "They're not just predators, they're strategists." The Vrikath emerged silently like phantoms. Sleek, chitinous, and elongated, they moved in perfect synchronization. Their psychic energy radiated as a faint shimmer in the air, distorting reality itself. The humans felt it first in their bones, a pressure, a whisper in the mind, predicting their moves before they acted. Every step, every breath, was anticipated. "Circle formation," Mara commanded. "Do not move predictably. They'll anticipate it." The Vrikath attacked in waves, striking from unexpected angles. One leapt from a cliffside, phasing through the air like liquid shadow, its claws aimed to incapacitate. Another emerged from the molten river, moving faster than the human eye could track. Sergeant Cale Moreno dodged instinctively, rolling over jagged rock as his pulse rifle discharged. The bolt struck nothing but air. The Vrikath moved with uncanny foresight. "They predict patterns," Cale growled. "We have to be chaotic." Private Lena Cross's eyes flicked to a cluster of pulsating flora. Her instincts fired faster than thought. She tore a stalk free, slamming it into a makeshift trap that released blinding, disorienting spores. One predator shrieked and faltered, crashing into the canyon wall. "Good thinking, Lena," Mara shouted. "Keep improvising. Make them react to us, not the other way around." The squad used every tool Kael'thar offered. Molten fissures became traps. Falling rock and steam bursts were timed to disrupt the aliens' psychic synchronization. Sergeant Dax Ree hurled shards of obsidian to trigger chain reactions in the environment, turning the planet itself into a weapon. The Vrikath faltered, caught off guard by human unpredictability. But the predators adapted quickly. Their psychic shimmer intensified, lashing at the humans' minds. Thoughts and fears intruded, visions of lava burns, collapsing cliffs, and impending death. Panic threatened to break the squad. Mara gritted her teeth, forcing focus. "Remember your training. Breathe, observe, react. Don't let them think for you." Kyle realized the key. The Vrikath were powerful, but rigid in their thinking. They anticipated patterns, not creativity. Every improvisation, every instinctive decision that broke expectation, created openings. The humans had become unpredictable variables in a universe built on precision. A massive Vrikath surged from the shadows, psychic energy lancing toward Dax. Reflexively, he rolled to the side, triggering a trap Lena had prepared. The predator hit a molten fissure, screaming as it staggered. Mara seized the moment, unleashing a coordinated volley from the squad's pulse rifles. The strike wasn't perfect, but it was enough. The Vrikath retreated temporarily, regrouping in the shadows. Silence fell, punctuated only by the hiss of molten rock and the squad's ragged breathing. Every human knew they had survived by instinct, not superiority. Kyle glanced at Lena, who wiped sweat and grime from her brow. "We're not just surviving," he said. "We're teaching them to respect unpredictability." Mara scanned the canyon, eyes narrowing. "They'll be back, and next time they'll anticipate more, but so will we. Kael'thar doesn't just test our bodies, it tests our minds. And humans, we adapt." The squad moved cautiously, shadowing the molten rivers. Every step, Every glance was instinctive. The Vrikath were strategists, but humans thrived where instinct and ingenuity surpassed rigid logic. The canyon seemed to pulse in response, alive and aware, but the squad had begun to master its deadly rhythm. Above the horizon, lightning cracked and illuminated the canyon in stark, violent flashes. The humans were battered, exhausted but alive. They had faced alien tactics and survived not through brute force but through the combination of instinct, improvisation, and relentless adaptability. Kelthar had tested them, and the humans had passed, but only barely. The molten rivers below hissed like living fire, casting flickering red shadows that danced across the canyon walls. Kelthar's air was thick with sulfur and steam, every inhalation burning their lungs. The squad's armor, scorched and dented from repeated encounters, reflected the alien glow, reminding them of the planet's merciless intent. Lieutenant Mara Jensen led the group along a precarious cliffside path. Every step threatened to trigger a cascade of molten rock or collapse the jagged ledge beneath them. Behind her, Sergeant Yu. Cale Moreno scanned the canyon floor, eyes sharp for predators lurking in the shifting shadows. Then came the roar, deep, guttural, and unlike anything they had faced before. A colossal apex predator emerged from a fissure of molten rock, its massive chitinous limbs glinting in the crimson glow. Its 6 glowing eyes scanned the humans, calculating every move. The ground trembled under its weight. "Move! Split formation!" Mara shouted. The squad scattered, seeking cover behind jagged rock outcrops. Pulse rifles fired in desperate volleys. But the creature shrugged off the shots, its psychic energy rippling through the canyon like a shockwave. It was hunting, and it was relentless. Sergeant Dax Ree was caught in the open. The predators' claws swung toward him with terrifying speed. Mara's instincts screamed, but there was no time to reach him. He had only one chance. Cale Moreno dove, intercepting Dax's path and firing at the predator, but it was too fast. In a heartbeat, Private Lena Cross understood what had to be done. She sprinted toward the apex predator, leading it toward a narrow lava bridge. Her pulse rifle discharged, but she didn't aim to kill. She aimed to bait. Mara's comm crackled, with alarm. "Lena, no, get back!" But Lena didn't hesitate. She timed her movements perfectly, her instincts honed by hours of survival on Kelthar. The predator lunged, following her onto the unstable bridge. Sparks flew as molten metal splashed beneath her boots. Then with a final push, Lena triggered a controlled collapse of the lava bridge, sending herself and the apex predator into the churning molten river below. Silence fell, broken only by the hiss and roar of the molten currents. The squad froze, stunned by the sacrifice. Mara's hands trembled as she lowered her rifle, eyes searching the haze for any sign of Lena. But the heat and molten currents left no trace. Kyle knelt beside Mara, voice tight with emotion. She saved us all." Mara's gaze swept the horizon, the crimson glow painting the canyon in harsh shadows. The Vrikath that had been watching from the cliffs recoiled, their psychic connection disrupted by the unexpected sacrifice. Even the apex predator had faltered. Humans had done the impossible. The squad moved forward cautiously, each step heavy with grief and gratitude. Kelthar was still alive, still dangerous and still hunting, but the humans had proven something no predator could anticipate. Selflessness and courage could alter the rules of survival. As they navigated the molten fissures, Mara addressed the squad, her voice steady despite the tension. "We've lost a comrade, but remember this. Every instinct, every decision, every act of courage defines us. Kelthar tests us, yes, but it also teaches us. Lena taught us that humans don't just survive. When we adapt, we sacrifice, and we overcome." The canyon stretched ahead, molten rivers carving paths of fire through jagged rock. The Vrikath watched from the shadows, still assessing, still learning. But the humans had gained an edge: unpredictability, ingenuity, and the emotional strength to make impossible choices. Sergeant Cale Moreno glanced at the others, a grim smile forming. They may have the numbers, the psychic power, the terrain, but they don't have what we have. Instinct, courage, humanity. Mara nodded. And that edge will carry us forward, through every trial Kael'thar throws at us. Above them, lightning split the crimson sky, illuminating jagged cliffs and molten rivers. The planet was alive, merciless, and unforgiving. But humans had endured, and their instinct, their ingenuity, and their willingness to sacrifice had forged a new path through the Deathworld. The crimson storm had eased into a tense, simmering heat, but Kael'thar's deathly pulse had not slowed. The molten rivers hissed below, sending up waves of scalding steam that distorted the jagged cliffs like mirages. Shadows writhed unnaturally across the terrain, hinting at predators waiting, observing, calculating. Lieutenant Mara Jensen crouched behind a jagged outcrop, scanning the horizon. "They're still out there," she whispered. "The Vrikath are watching. Every move we make, they anticipate." But the humans had changed. Each encounter, each trial of Kael'thar had sharpened their instincts to a razor's edge. What was once survival by reaction had become survival by strategy. They were learning the planet as much as the predators were learning them. Sergeant Kyle Moreno surveyed a section of the canyon where molten fissures branched like veins. "We can use this," he said, pointing. "If we control the terrain, we control the hunt." The squad moved silently, setting traps from jagged rock and the glowing flora. Lena Cross positioned a cluster of bioluminescent plants near a fissure, rigging it to emit disorienting pulses when disturbed. Dax Ree used molten spray and falling debris to create choke points, forcing predators to navigate terrain on human terms. Every step was deliberate, every movement instinct-driven but planned with precision. From the shadows, a Vrikath surged forward, psychic energy rippling in a shimmering haze. It struck with lethal intent, phasing through the air like a ghost. But the humans had anticipated this. Mara lured it toward Lena's trap, and the predator staggered as the bioluminescent spores pulsed violently, disrupting its psychic rhythm. Kyle fired from a ridge above, aiming carefully, not for a kill but for control. The predator tumbled into a fissure, molten steam scalding its limbs. The humans held their positions, observing, calculating. Kael'thar itself had become a weapon in their hands. Suddenly, more Vrikath emerged, moving with synchronized precision. But the humans did not flee. They moved unpredictably yet tactically, forcing the predators into the traps laid out in advance. One Vrikath lunged for Mara, only to find itself sliding into a cascade of molten rock triggered by Dax's timed strikes. The squad worked as a seamless unit, instinct guiding improvisation, improvisation guiding strategy. Kael'thar's hazards, lava flows, collapsing cliffs, steam vents, were no longer threats alone. They were tools, extensions of human will. Every obstacle became an ally, every predator a challenge to test and refine their instincts. Hours passed in a tense dance of survival. Each trap, each feint, each tactical maneuver reinforced a brutal truth. Humans thrived where prediction failed. The Vrikath adapted quickly, but humans adapted faster, turning instinct into a weapon, chaos into advantage. Mara paused atop a ridge, surveying the scene. The Vrikath were retreating, regrouping, learning that humans could manipulate Kael'thar as easily as the planet manipulated them. She knew this advantage would not last forever, but for now, the humans had turned the tables. Kyle Moreno joined her, breathing hard, but steady. "We're not just surviving anymore," he said. "We're hunting. We've learned the rhythm of the planet, and theirs. Instinct, strategy, courage. They can't predict it." The molten rivers hissed below, shadows twisting unnaturally. Lightning flickered across jagged cliffs, illuminating the squad as they advanced. Every movement was precise, every decision a balance of instinct and calculated improvisation. Kael'thar had tested them, and they had answered with brilliance, ingenuity, and unyielding courage. As the crimson night pressed down, Mara spoke into the comms, voice calm yet resolute. "Remember this, squad. Kael'thar is dangerous. It will test us again. But we now understand its rules. We adapt. We improvise. we survive. And when necessary, we strike back. Above the jagged peaks, the Vryketh watched, their psychic energy flickering with uncertainty. Even apex predators learned respect when the hunted refused to be predictable. Humanity had gained an edge, instinct sharpened by adversity, courage hardened by sacrifice, and creativity honed in the furnace of a death world. Lightning tore across the blood-red sky, illuminating jagged cliffs and molten rivers below. Caelthar trembled beneath the humans' boots, the planet itself vibrating as if anticipating the ultimate battle. Shadows twisted unnaturally, revealing forms that flickered in and out of existence. Somewhere in the darkness, the apex predator, the Vryketh Alpha, watched, calculating every heartbeat of the human squad. Lieutenant Mara Jensen crouched behind a jagged outcrop, pulse rifle humming, in her hands. "This is it," she whispered, voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "The Alpha. Everything we've learned leads to this moment." The Vryketh Alpha emerged from a molten fissure, a colossal fusion of chitin and psychic energy. Its 6 glowing eyes scanned the humans, each movement radiating intelligence and lethality. Steam hissed around its massive frame as molten rock dripped from its limbs, yet it moved with terrifying grace. Sergeant Cale Moreno gritted his teeth. "It's huge, but it doesn't know us yet." He gestured to the squad. "Use everything we've learned. Terrain, traps, improvisation. Hit it where it doesn't expect." The Alpha surged forward, psychic energy rippling in waves that made the air itself vibrate. Mara fired, but the bolts barely grazed the predator. It anticipated every shot, phasing with a speed that defied logic. One swipe of its claw sent a cloud of molten debris spraying across the ridge, narrowly missing Cale and Lena. Lena Cross's eyes flicked to a precarious lava bridge above the canyon floor. Her instincts fired faster than thought. "Mara, over. Here, lead it toward the bridge." Mara nodded, signaling the squad. They moved as one, each step timed to lure the predator. Caelthar itself seemed to respond, fissures opening beneath the Alpha's massive claws, molten streams carving new paths of danger. The humans weren't just fighting, they were orchestrating a deadly ballet, using the planet as their weapon. The Alpha lunged, psychic waves lashing at their minds. Dax faltered briefly, visions of molten death flashing before him, but Mara grabbed his arm, forcing focus. "Instinct, Dax. Trust your senses, not fear." Lena triggered the lava bridge, sending the Alpha sliding perilously close to the molten river below. But the predator recovered, claws scraping rock, psychic tendrils lashing outward to anticipate the next human move. The squad reacted instinctively, exploiting the openings their traps created. Pulse rifles fired, energy spikes ignited the terrain, and the Alpha roared in frustration, its psychic foresight disrupted by unpredictability. Cale Moreno seized the moment, hurling a shard of jagged rock to trigger a controlled collapse. The Alpha stumbled, molten rock cascading over its limbs. Mara leapt forward, pulse rifle aimed at a critical joint in the exoskeleton, firing a precise shot that disabled one of the Alpha's limbs. The predator thrashed, furious, but the humans did not relent. Each member of the squad moved with a combination of instinct and improvisation honed through hours of survival on Caelthar. They weren't just fighting, they were teaching the predator a lesson it would never forget. Finally, the apex predator lost balance on the unstable terrain. Lena Cross made the final move, baiting it toward a fissure rigged with molten debris. The Alpha tumbled into the fiery chasm, its roar echoing through the canyon as it vanished into molten chaos. Silence fell, broken only by the hiss of lava and the squad's ragged breathing. Mara surveyed the scene, eyes narrowing as adrenaline faded to exhaustion. "We survived," she said quietly, voice filled with awe. "Not because we were stronger, but because we adapted, improvised, and trusted our instincts. Caelthar tested us, and we answered." Cale Moreno placed a hand on her shoulder. "Even apex predators underestimate humanity. We fight differently, we survive differently, that's our edge." The crimson sky began to pale, dawn breaking over the molten horizon. Shadows retreated into jagged cliffs, and the planet's pulse seemed to slow, acknowledging the humans' dominance. The squad stood victorious, battered but alive, their instincts, courage, and ingenuity having carried them through the deadliest trial Kael'thar had to offer. Dawn crept over Kael'thar, painting the jagged cliffs and molten rivers in a pale orange glow. The storm had finally broken, leaving only the hiss of steam and the distant rumble of shifting rock. The Deathworld had been merciless, but the human squad had endured. Every scar, every singed suit, every racing heartbeat told the story of survival, of instinct sharpened into a weapon. Lieutenant Mara Jensen led the squad along a ridge, surveying the desolate landscape. The Vrikath Alpha lay defeated, a molten scar etched into the canyon floor where it had tumbled. The remaining predators lingered in the shadows, their psychic presence cautious and wary. Kael'thar itself seemed to exhale, acknowledging that a species had bested its most lethal tests. Sergeant Kale Moreno knelt by a fissure, fingers tracing the glowing rock. "The planet tested us at every step," he murmured. "Every trial, every predator, it forced us to become more than we were, stronger, smarter, faster." Mara nodded, eyes scanning the horizon. "Not just stronger, different. Kael'thar doesn't forgive weakness, and yet we endured. Instinct, ingenuity, courage, these are our true weapons." The squad moved cautiously through the molten canyons, knowing that Kael'thar remained dangerous. Lava bridges creaked beneath their weight, and steam vents hissed unpredictably. But the humans had learned the rhythm of the planet. They no longer merely reacted, they anticipated. Every step, every glance, every decision was a calculated use of instinct. Above, the Vrikath watched from jagged cliffs. Their psychic shimmer flickered with a new emotion. Respect, perhaps, or even fear. For the first time, the alien predators had encountered a species that could not be predicted, a species that thrived in chaos and uncertainty. Humans had rewritten the rules of engagement, proving that instinct and adaptability could rival the deadliest predators in the galaxy. Mara raised her rifle, scanning for any lingering threats. "This planet is lethal," she said, "but it respects strength, ingenuity, and courage, and now it knows humans possess all three." Kyle Moreno allowed himself a rare smile. "The galaxy will hear about this. They thought Kael'thar was insurmountable. They'll learn what we already know. Humans survive where others perish." The squad paused at the edge of a cliff, looking down over molten rivers and jagged spires. Silence settled over the canyon, like a heavy cloak, broken only by the occasional hiss of molten metal. Mara spoke into the comms, her voice steady. "Record everything. Every tactic, every instinctive decision. This is a victory not just for survival, but for humanity itself. Let the galaxy remember that humans can endure and triumph where others fail." As they prepared to leave, Kael'thar's dangers were far from gone. The planet still pulsed with lethal intent, its predators still learning, its environment still deadly. Yet the squad moved forward, leaving behind evidence of human ingenuity. Traps rigged from the terrain, scorched marks of victory, and a story of courage that even the Vrikath would carry into legend. Private Lena Cross, silent until now, glanced back at the molten rivers. "We survived, but Kael'thar changed us," she said softly. "Every instinct sharpened, every decision harder than before. We aren't the same humans who arrived." Mara placed a hand on her shoulder. "That's the point. Survival on a death world isn't just about staying alive, it's about evolving. Kael'thar taught us to trust our instincts, to act decisively, to improvise without hesitation. That's our edge. That's what makes us human." The dropship descended from the sky, engines roaring as it hovered above the molten terrain. One by one, the squad climbed aboard, battered, exhausted, but alive. Mara took one last look at the planet below. Deadly, unyielding, and now forever marked by humanity's presence. As the dropship lifted off, lightning cracked across the horizon. The Vrikath watched, their psychic energy flickering with newfound caution. Kael'thar remained lethal, but it had met a species that refused to be tamed. Humanity had survived, adapted, and conquered, not by brute force but through instinct, courage, and ingenuity. The planet shrank beneath them, crimson rivers and jagged cliffs fading into the distance. Mara leaned back, breathing deeply. Kael'thar tested us, she said, voice low, and we passed. Humanity isn't just a species that survives. It's a species that thrives, even on Deathworlds.